high above the busy world, where the air grows thin and cool and the sky turns a softer kind of blue. There was a library resting gently on a bed of clouds. The clouds beneath it were not the sharp, bright kind that race across the sky on windy days. They were slow, wide, and soft, like enormous cushions that had decided to learn the art of floating. The library itself was made of pale stone and warm, honey-colored wood. It had tall arched windows, round windows, and tiny square windows tucked into quiet corners. From a distance, it looked a little like a castle, a little like a house, and a little like a dream that had not made up its mind. The roof was covered in tiles of muted blue and gray, some of which had slipped slightly out of place over the years, though no one ever climbed up to fix them. No one needed to. The building was not worried about being perfect. It simply existed there above the clouds, content and unhurried. Inside this library, the air always held a faint smell of old paper, soft dust, and something else that was almost like vanilla and almost like warm milk. Shelves stretched up the walls, but not too high, just high enough that a person could reach every book with a calm stretch or with the help of a gentle rolling ladder. Many of the shelves had rounded edges, as though the wood had been handled for a very long time and had become softer for it. The books themselves came in every size and color. Some were thick and full of important words that had forgotten they were once important. Some were thin and light, with only a few pages like small, shy thoughts that had decided to sit down and stay a while. Every book in the library had once belonged to someone, somewhere. They had been read and held and carried around in bags and forgotten on bedside tables. When a book's owner no longer needed it, not because they stopped caring, but because they had learned what they needed to learn, the book would become restless in a quiet, polite way. On certain nights, when the person fell asleep holding the book or thinking of it, the book would sigh, a tiny paper sigh, and turn into a trail of very fine dust. This dust would slip out through cracks in windows, under doors, or between the threads of pillowcases. And the wind, who was always listening, would gather the dust gently and carry it up, up, up into the sky. That was how the books arrived at the library above the clouds. They would appear one by one on empty spaces in the shelves, their titles slowly forming on the spines as if written by an invisible, careful hand. No one ever saw them arriving, but every morning there were always a few more books than the day before. In this library lived a person named Noah. Noah was neither young nor old to the library. They had been there for as long as the shelves could remember, which might have been a long time or might have been just right. Noah's job was simple: to take care of the books and to make sure that anyone who found their way to the library felt welcome and very, very calm. Noah wore a soft, loose cardigan the color of early morning fog and slippers that did not make any sound at all on the wooden floors. Their hair was always a little messy, as if it had been ruffled gently by a friendly breeze. Sometimes they hummed without noticing, a few notes that never turned into a full melody, but were pleasant all the same. The library did not get many visitors, but it did get some. You could not buy a ticket to it, or follow a map, or ask for directions. You arrived there only when your mind had wandered far enough away from your worries and had decided to climb instead of sink. Most visitors came in their sleep. Their bodies stayed in their own beds, in their own rooms, on their own pillows. But part of their mind, usually the part that was tired of thinking about lists and messages and unfinished tasks, would take a slow, careful step onto a cloud and find the library waiting. One evening, when the clouds around the building were extra soft and the sky had the color of cooled ash, Noah sat at a large wooden desk near the entrance, mending a book whose binding had become loose. The book did not mind. It liked the feeling of being gently held together again. Noah hummed a little, threading a thin needle with pale thread. There was a bell above the door that almost never rang. It was small and silver, with a sound so soft that it was easy to miss if you were thinking too loudly. Tonight, the bell gave a single quiet ring. Noah looked up. The door, which was made of glass framed with wood worn smooth by many hands, opened very slowly. A figure stepped inside, blinking as if they had come out of a place that was much brighter or much dimmer than this gentle light. Her name was Lena. At home, in the world below the clouds, Lena lay in her bed with the blankets pulled up and her eyes closed. But her thoughts had been restless. They had been walking in circles, replaying small conversations, remembering tiny worries, and asking questions that did not need answers at this hour. Now, in the library, her shoulders were still a little tense, and her hands were half curled, as if gripping something that was no longer there. She looked around slowly, her gaze passing over shelves and windows and soft lamps. Her breathing, which had been shallow, began to deepen without her noticing. "Welcome," Noah said, their voice quiet and even. "This is the library above the clouds. You're very safe here." Lena nodded, though she did not fully understand. She did not remember climbing or flying or walking here. She only remembered the feeling of being very tired of her own thoughts, and then the feeling of stepping onto something soft and cool that held her weight without any effort. "Do I need a card?" she asked, because that is what people usually ask in libraries. Noah smiled gently. "Not here," they said. "Here, you only need to be tired enough to rest." Lena let out a breath she had not meant to hold. The sound of it seemed to join all the other quiet sounds in the library, the soft ticking of a distant clock, the faint creak of a shelf settling, the barely audible rustle of pages as the books themselves dreamed. "Would you like to walk a little?" Noah asked. "Or would you prefer to sit right away?" Lena considered the question. Her feet did not feel heavy, and her mind felt curious in a gentle, unhurried way. "I think I'd like to walk," she said. So Noah led her slowly down one of the main aisles. The floorboards were smooth and warm under her bare feet. She realized she was not wearing shoes, though she could not remember taking them off. The lamps along the walls glowed with a soft, steady light, casting round puddles of brightness that did not argue with the shadows. "The books here are all finished with their work down below," Noah explained as they walked. "They've been read, thought about, carried around. When their readers were ready to rest from them, the books came here to rest too." Lena reached out and touched the spine of a thick green volume. It felt solid and calm. "What happens to them here?" she asked. "They relax," Noah said simply. "Sometimes they still like to be opened. Sometimes they are content just to exist on the shelf. They carry stories and facts and ideas, but they no longer need to hurry to be understood." They passed a shelf of very thin books, each one no thicker than a finger. "These," Noah said, noticing her glance, "are the unfinished thoughts. Little plans and small ideas people once had and then gently put aside. They come here too, so the people don't have to carry them around forever." Lena looked at the titles. Most of them were simple. Learn to bake bread, call an old friend, start a garden, read more poems. She smiled a little. It was strange and comforting to think that even her smallest, half-forgotten thoughts might have a place to rest somewhere. After a while, Noah guided her to a large window. Outside there was nothing but clouds stretching away in all directions. Some were close, like soft white hills. Some were far, like islands in a slow, pale sea. Between the clouds here and there were gaps through which Lena could see the world below. Tiny warm lights dotted the darkness. Towns and cities, houses and streets, places where people were still awake, places where people were already sleeping. From up here, the world looked quiet, even if it was not always quiet up close. Sometimes, Noah said, people come here when their mind feels like one of those busy places down there. Too bright, too loud, too full. The library helps them remember that there are also places like this. Lena watched a cloud drift slowly past the window. It moved with such ease, with no sign of effort. "It's very quiet," she said. "Yes," Noah replied. "The quiet here doesn't ask anything of you. You don't have to fill it. You can just let it be." They stood there for a few moments, or maybe longer. Time in the library did not seem interested in being counted too exactly. Lena's shoulders dropped a little more. Her hands loosened. Her jaw relaxed. "Would you like to choose a book?" Noah asked. "You don't have to read it. Sometimes it helps just to hold one." Lena nodded, and they returned to the shelves. They walked until they came to a section labeled in neat handwriting, "For Resting Minds." On these shelves, the books seemed to be arranged by feeling rather than subject. Gentle blues for comfort, pale yellows for warmth, soft grays for quiet. Noah ran a finger gently along the spines, then paused. "This one," they said, pulling out a medium-sized book with a cover the color of soft wool. "There is not much inside it, just enough." Lena took the book. It was pleasantly heavy, the way a well-made blanket is heavy. She opened it at random and saw page after page of simple, slow descriptions. A chair by a window, a cup on a table, a field on a cloudy afternoon, a hand resting on a sleeping cat. Nothing happened in the book quickly. In fact, very little happened at all. "I like it," she said, surprised by how true that was. "It doesn't demand anything." There are many like that here, Noah said. They're very good at matching the pace of a tired mind. They led her to a corner where there was a low couch covered in cushions. A soft throw blanket lay folded there, waiting without urgency. The lamp beside it was dim, but not too dim to read. Lena sat down and placed the book on her lap. The cushions shaped themselves around her without complaint. Noah adjusted the lamp to a softer setting and stepped back. "You can stay as long as you need," they said. "When your mind is ready, it will walk you back to your own bed." "Will I remember this?" Lena asked, her voice already slower. "Perhaps a little," Noah answered. "Perhaps only as a feeling. That is usually enough." Lena opened the book again. She read a sentence about the sound of rain on a roof. She read another sentence about a curtain moving gently in a breeze. After a while, she stopped reading the words and simply let her eyes move slowly along the lines. The paragraphs flowed like calm water. Nothing in the story asked her to make a decision. Nothing asked her to be clever or quick. Each image settled into her mind like a small stone at the bottom of a very clear pond. Around her, the library continued its quiet existence. Somewhere in the distance, a stack of books adjusted itself with a soft thump. A page turned itself in a forgotten volume. The tiny clock near the door moved its hands one small notch forward. Lena's head grew heavier against the cushion. Her grip on the book loosened. Her fingers were more resting on it than holding it now. Her breathing slowed, matching the unhurried rhythm of the pages. "I could stay here," she thought, but the thought was not a wish and not a plan. It was just a small drifting idea, as light as dust motes in a beam of light. The library did not mind. It knew that everyone who visited carried a piece of its calm back with them, even if they never knew exactly where it had come from. Noah watched from across the room, their hands folded loosely. They saw Lena's eyes move less, her chest rise and fall more slowly. They moved to a nearby shelf and straightened a few books, not because it was necessary, but because the motion was gentle and satisfying. More dust was arriving, somewhere above, carried by the patient wind. Soon, a few new books would appear. Perhaps one would be a story someone had loved as a child and no longer needed to remember in detail. Perhaps another would be a journal whose blank pages had finally forgiven themselves for staying blank. The library above the clouds would welcome them as it welcomed everything that was ready to rest, as it welcomed every tired thought that wandered in, looking for a place where nothing urgent waited. On the couch, Lena's eyes closed completely now. The book on her lap shifted slightly, then settled. Her breathing made a soft sound in the quiet room, fitting in easily among all the other soft sounds. In her own bed, far below, her body relaxed in the same way, her face smoothed. The tightness behind her eyes eased. Her hands released their invisible grip on the day. Up in the library, a page made the tiniest whisper as it turned itself over, revealing another slow description, another quiet image, ready for the next visitor who might need it. The clouds outside drifted past the windows, unbothered by time or direction. The world below continued with its lights and its worries and its conversations. But here, above the clouds, there was only this: shelves, pages, soft lamps, a caretaker in quiet slippers, and now one more sleeping visitor, held gently by a place that asked nothing of her but to rest. If in some future night Lena's thoughts became busy again and her mind wandered upward once more, The library would still be here, the couch would still be soft, the book would still be waiting, and Noah would still be there to say, in that same calm voice, "Welcome, you are very safe here." And just knowing that such a place existed, even as a half-remembered feeling, would help her drift a little more easily each time into sleep. For now, though, the library did what it did best. It stayed. It watched over its shelves and its clouds and its sleeping. Guessed, as the night unfolded like a very quiet, very patient story, and somewhere in that long, gentle unfolding, thought after thought let go, and sleep, soft and deep, arrived and stayed.